On my count, the first person that comes here and gets the bottle gets to keep it. Ready, set, go. All the Awesome. Thanks for the love. I didn't tip him, by the way, so, So what did he do that was different than a majority of you? It's one thing. Exactly. God, I actually asked, was there anything that I couldn't do or say during this talk? So I have a disclaimer. But he did one thing. He took action. That's it. That's the one thing.
Call the manufacturer and they're like, sorry, out of warranty. Good luck. So then I'm like Google-tastic trying to find some kind of solutions. And then we both looked at each other. We're like, why don't we just turn it off from the wall and then turn it back on again and see if it works? It works. That's the fix. And it's a really good lesson for life in general, because most things in life can be fixed if you just turn them off. And that goes for washing machines, TVs, and human beings. And you know what? My recent study, which really asked incredible leaders, what is self-respect and how do you build it? One of the most common themes was, take care of yourselves. Just take care of yourselves. Self-care is so incredibly important, but we dismiss it as a luxury. But self-care is not a luxury. Self-care is a priority and an obligation that you have to yourselves, and especially for you. The question is, how are you going to take care of others if you can't take care of yourselves? But what are we doing actually to strengthen our brain? This is the most miraculous muscle, the one that's between our ears. And we know that even if you're born thinking a certain way, you can change your thinking. You can renovate your brain just like you can renovate a house. But the problem is, it takes a choice.
So, you know what, when I was looking up some photos and I found these, it really made me take a second to really think, how was my life back then? Was I living a happy life, or was I pretending to live a happy life? And here's what I came up with. Essentially, I was trying to live a Ferrari life with a Mitsubishi mindset. And I was wondering why I wasn't happy. So over time, what I really had to do was raise my standards. And when we talk about standards, the first thing that you think about is monetary stuff. Ferraris, diamonds, et cetera, but really what I want to drive home, pun intended, today, is that standards is about self-respect. And I think over time we allow self-respect to just go lower, lower, lower. So no matter what standards you have when you walked in through those doors 10 minutes ago, that doesn't matter. What matters is what you want your standards to be from this very moment in time to move forward. So it doesn't matter if your standards have been set from someone else, maybe mom, dad, ex-partner, whatever the case may be. What matters is, what do you want to do with your life from this point forward? Because I'll tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, most of my clients and myself, we always put our standards lower than we can actually achieve. And we do this to protect ourselves, ourselves from the fear of failure. So one of the many things I want you guys to take home today is learning how to raise your standards, because over time, the more you do so, the less you'll be disappointed when things don't work out, because it does one thing. It reminds you that you should have self-respect.
When I was in my master's, this was again when I was dealing with a very severe eating disorder and major depression. I was just starting out in my post-grad and I felt I do not belong here, because everyone else around me knew all the answers. They were super smart. They knew about this and that and the other. So as a reason, I felt very, very low in confidence, very low in self-esteem. So I did the opposite. I inflated my ego, and I couldn't even believe that my head could fit through doors. I was just really overcompensating. So once a month, the entire department would get together and listen to a student present their findings, right? So it was kind of like an auditorium like this, and I was kind of at the back. And I remember after this student presented their work, I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask a really smart question. You know, like those smart people questions? I was like, I'm going to ask one of those. And that's going to prove that I belong here, that I deserve to be here. So I was like, right, okay. At the end of the presentation, raised my hand. And I remember it was a guy named Sergio. I asked a question. And in my head, I was thinking, this is when, you know, in the movies, when they all turn and they stand up and they do the slow clap. They're like, wow, she's smart. She's going to win a Nobel Prize. In my head, that's what was going to happen. But it went something like this. Asked it, and Sergio's face went. And then everyone turned around, including a fly. I swear, there's a fly on the wall that even looked at me funny. They're like, what? Oh, it got worse, though. So my supervisor was a couple of aisles down, and he was shaking his head. He turned back to the front, crossed his legs, you know it's going to get really bad, put his head in his hand, and just started shaking his head. I was mortified. I felt like just curling up because I didn't realize that other people felt exactly the same way. They were like, why am I here? Someone's going to take away my scholarship. I'm stupid. I don't belong here. And I didn't realize I could actually say, I'm struggling. I have no idea what you're talking about at all. I had no idea I could do that because I had to put this front. I had to keep this mask on. As a scholarship winner, you know, you're sort of put up, oh, you always have to know the right answer. You always have to know that. It's not true. So remember, in these years, be you while becoming you. You're not going to be the smartest person in the room, but that doesn't mean you can't contribute and you can't ask questions.
And that's the thing that we have to do. It's almost like neurofeedback. It's an opportunity to learn, but the problem is when it's in a social context, we take it in as, oh, there's something wrong with us. But it's actually the best thing. It's what your brain wants. It wants to be challenged, because if it's not challenged, guess what? We wouldn't grow. And I mean this from a literal sense. Our brain would not develop.